So how, in a few words, why do you think Islam is not like the
Oh man,
way to go in a way?
because if Jesus is real, and he is, even Muslims agree, Jesus says in John 14:6, written by one of his disciples, I am the way and the truth and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. So Jesus said, you want to be with God, you have to come through me because I'm the one who brings you to the Father.
Hmm.
Muhammad comes 600 years later. He says Jesus is not the Son and Allah is not the Father, contradicting what Jesus, who came 600 years before him, taught about God. So who
Hmm.
do I follow? This Jesus, whom even Muslims admit was miraculous, born of a virgin, did miracles, and whom they admit Allah supposedly took him to himself. That's in their Quran, which I don't believe. Or this man Muhammad, who came and lived an evil, immoral life. For example, if you ask Ali Rama, did Muhammad marry a 9-year old when he was 54? Yes. Did Muhammad command his jihadis that when they attack a place and they take women captive, even if they're married, they can have sex with them and sell them? Yes, that's Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 24. Did Muhammad have more wives than he allowed even his followers? In chapter 4, verse 3, it says Muslims can have only up to 4 wives if they're fair, and many sex slaves, but Muhammad had up to 11 wives because he had special privileges. So, how am
Hmm.
I going to follow Muhammad when I look at Jesus and I look at his followers like Paul and see how loving and pure and compassionate they are in comparison to Muhammad and his followers who are bloodthirsty, murderers, rapists, and whoremongers? There is no comparison. You want me there?
Hmm.
In
Yeah.
fact, if I were to tell you, who would you take advice from? Someone who's alive or someone who's dead?
Well,
Who
it
would you take
depends
advice?
from the advice.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about advice about God and salvation and happiness. Someone who's alive or someone who's dead?
Mm, someone who's alive.
So the Muslims will tell you Jesus is alive. Isa, they call him, even though it's not the right Jesus. That's 355, 4158, and he's alive with Allah. But Muhammad died, chapter 39, verse 30 of the Quran. So why would I want to follow Muhammad, who died and is buried,
Mm.
and not follow Jesus, who's still alive, even according to Muslims, and who will return to the earth, even according to Muslims? That's Islamic theology. I don't need Islamic theology because my Bible tells me Jesus is alive. He died and rose again, conquering death and could never die, and will return physically, bodily to the earth to judge the world in righteousness. That's what Jesus says in John 5:22 to 23. In John 5:22 23, Jesus says, moreover, the Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son, even as they honor the Father who sent him. So, why would I want to take advice about God and the afterlife from such an immoral man who's dead and buried, and turn away from the Jesus of history, who's the Jesus of the New Testament, the books of the New Testament, who says, I'm the way, the truth, and life? The Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son, even as they honor the Father who sent him. And who also said, I am the resurrection and the life. This is what Jesus says. John 11, 25, 26. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And he who believes in me and lives shall never die. Do you believe this? So why would I want to give up and turn my back on this Jesus who said these things and proved it, and follow this man who's dead and buried and was an immoral pig,
Hmm.
marrying a 10-year-old when he's 54, having 11 wives, even though he told his followers they can only have 4, who took women captive and raped them and sold them off, even married women, and also treated women as whores because the Muslims asked them, don't take my word for it, ask the Sunni, say,
Yeah,
is it true that at one time your prophet allowed muta marriages, muta, M-U-T-A, zawj al-muta?
yeah,
They'll
I
say,
know.
yes, he allowed it. Say it again.
I know about Muta. Yeah.
Okay, so how would you feel a prophet comes and says, hey, can I marry your sister for 3 days and I'll divorce her and pay her money? And he says he's a prophet of God. How would you feel about that?
Well, bad, obviously.
But that's what Muhammad did. How would you feel if Muhammad attacked your city, you took your mother, my mother, took your wife, my wife, took your daughter, my daughter, took your sister, my sister, and raped them and sold them off?
Well,
That's
yeah.
what Muhammad. That's what Muhammad in chapter 4, verse 24 of the Quran, Surah An-Nisa 24, and in the Hadith, Sunan Abu Dawud 2150. Would you be happy with such a prophet who teaches his followers to do such things in the name of his God?
No.
So then, why in the world would you consider the Quran and Muhammad? Why not go back to your roots? And your roots are the Orthodox Church. And now learn about your church, learn about your Jesus, learn about his holy apostles like Paul. Start with your root. Your root is the Orthodox Church. Go back to it, study the Bible, study about the servants of the Lord, these holy apostles, and study about these great martyrs of the Orthodox Church, these holy martyrs of the Orthodox Church who did not live like Muhammad, but much better than Muhammad. Muhammad wasn't even good enough to compare to one of the martyrs of the church, let alone to Jesus and his followers.
I didn't know this about Muhammad.
Of course, they're not going to tell you. They're not
Because
going to tell you.
here in England, they have they don't teach you about Islam like in the
Of course they
Middle East.
won't.
What?
Of course they won't teach you that.
For
They're
example,
afraid of the Muslims.
they're saying that the Islam in the Middle East is wrong, but Islam here in England is the right one. Now,
Now, but
yeah,
before you ask me another question, think about it. The Islam comes from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. You're telling me the Islam of Saudi Arabia, from where Islam came, the birthplace of Islam is wrong, but Muslims in the West got it right?
yeah, yeah. This is my point. This is my point. Like it doesn't make the
Exactly.
the guy. I don't know if I can say preacher. He comes every day basically trying to convert people to Islam, and he gives you stories basically how uh, none of this happened about the rapings and the killings of Muhammad.
It didn't happen?
Yeah.
According to what sources? What sources?
So
I'm
he
giving you Quran and I'm giving you Hadith. Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, Jami Tirmidhi, Sirat Rasulullah. These are all their sources. So when he said it didn't happen, what sources are you reading?
so they're giving Muslim scholars and philosophers who um, translate the Quran basically.
Yeah.
So what is their point? So they're saying you cannot understand the Quran without looking into a different perspective.
What
This is
perspective?
what?
What perspective they want you to look at here? I'm going to give you a verse here just to prove my point. What perspective are they talking about here? Surah
Like
424. Go ahead,
the,
yeah.
the Muslim scholars and philosophers.
So the Muslim scholars and philosophers are going to tell you what the Quran means as opposed to going to the Quran and how Muhammad explained it. So are they saying that they're actually prophets and messengers after Muhammad? Because I thought Muhammad is the prophet, he's the messenger, he's the one who gives us the Quran and explains what it means, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
but
now here, go
but
ahead, yeah, go ahead.
but basically they're saying that you cannot understand the Quran by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. That's why you go to the Sunnah and have Muhammad explain it for you. Exactly. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to give you one example. 424. I put it on the screen.
Yeah, I see it.
Chapter 4, verse 24. Then I'm going to give you Muhammad from the Sunni ahadith, their
Mm-hmm.
hadiths.
Hmm.
Okay, 424. Also forbidden are women already married, meaning you cannot have sex with a woman married except those captives and slaves whom your right hands possess. Did you catch it?
Yeah.
So I cannot have sex with a married woman unless she's what? A
Y-
slave of mine or a captive of mine, right? You see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now let me show you why this verse was sent down supposedly. I'm going to give it to you from a Muslim website. I'm going to give you the link. There's sunnah.com. Okay, watch here. Autas, here it is. I'm going to show it to you right here so you can see with your own eyes. Here's the hadith. Sunan Abu Dawud, it's great. Sahih meaning sound. This is sound, authentic. Here it is in private chat. I'm sending you the link. Look at private chat. Okay, and I'm going to put it in the screen for everyone else. And we're going to read, okay? This is their sources. This is a Muslim site. I didn't write it. The great Sahih, meaning this is a sound narration. Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 11, Hadith 2150. Here it goes. Let me post it here. And we're going to read it on the screen. All right? This is what they're not going to show you. Okay? Chapter regarding intercourse with captives, having sex with captives. Okay? Abu Sayyid al Khudri said, the Apostle of Allah sent a military expedition to Autas on the occasion of the Battle of Hunain. They met their enemy and fought with them. They defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of Apostle of Allah were reluctant. They refused to have relations, sex with the female captives. Why? Because of their pagan husbands. So they saw these women, they were married, and their husbands are still alive. So they didn't want to touch them because they thought it's adultery. So what did Allah do? So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, the verse I just read. And all married women are forbidden unto you, save those captives whom your right hand possess. This is to say that they are lawful for them when they complete their waiting period. So Muhammad gave them a verse, 424, saying, don't worry about it. Just because they're married, doesn't matter. They're your captive, they're your property. So you have sex with them as long as you make sure they're not pregnant first. Make
Hmm.
sure they're not already pregnant, and then have sex with them and you sell them off. This is Islam. This is the Quran. This is the Sunnah that these philosophers don't want you to know because they're embarrassed.